I want to welcome everybody back to the Behind the Well show. Your host, Roger Abel, here with Elias. Elias, we're getting ready. It's 3 days to Christmas as this episode's going to air. Is your family ready?
Of course. We're always ready for Christmas. Been ready for Christmas since Halloween.
Yeah, this year we actually started decorating. I don't even want to admit this. It was like November 15th we had our tree up because my wife went and we had a real tree, and I don't know if I told anybody this story, but last year my wife went and bought a real tree. And we've got ceilings in our house that are 10 feet, and then they go to like 11 feet. So I told her, I said, go get a 9-foot tree. Like, don't get bigger than a 9-foot tree. So she goes out to Hoffman Tree Farm or wherever she went and got this tree. And they deliver this thing, and it's gigantic. It is literally like the Griswold family Christmas tree. It's all wrapped up, and they bring it in. They put it up there. The top of the tree hits the ceiling. So now there's, sap up on the tree, and it's a white sap up on the ceiling. They take the band off, and literally the tree explodes, just like the movie. And She comes home. She's not home at the time. I'm like, if I bought this tree, do you know how much trouble I would have been in if I would have brought that tree home? And don't get me wrong. It was a beautiful tree. It was a great tree. I really enjoyed it. Other than it was a little too tall.
Geez, I was going to say, you sound like the Grinch.
So, no, I enjoyed the tree. But this year, she goes, we're not going to have that problem. I go, okay, what's the plan? She goes, I'm buying a fake tree. And I'm okay with that. So that's why we had the fake tree up by November 15th, because they delivered it. They did all the work. They put it up. So we've been set for a long time. In fact, this is the first year I've done lights outside my house ever. My daughter goes, Dad, when are we putting up our Christmas lights? Because all the neighbors are doing it. I'm like, well, we'll have to go buy some. So I went and bought like 3 strands of red lights and put it in a tree outside. And we bought a little Grinch figurine and some stuff. But my 5-year-old daughter started giving me the guilt trip about Christmas. So we've been well prepared. I don't know about you, but my wife does, 99% of the shopping for Christmas. So there's not a whole lot I have to do from that standpoint.
Yeah, I do 0% of it. So the gift, my wife buys her own gift and wraps it, and then it's from me. So
we did that this year too for each of us. In the past, we always exchanged. But this year, we just said, "Hey, go buy what you want, wrap it up. Kids can watch us open some stuff." Not that they probably care about what we're opening, but I don't know if you saw this article. I threw it on the outline. Did you buy the Applebee's NFT? And what's interesting about this, before I go into this, my wife the other night, my kids go to bed at 8, so we start chatting in the kitchen, and she goes, hey, I want to invest in the Metaverse. That's what she told me.
She wants to invest in the Metaverse?
Yeah, because she's been reading about it. And, I go back to the story about my wife when we were first married. I don't know, you've probably heard this story. When we were first married, it was like 2002. We just bought a new house in 2003. And my wife came home. She's like, hey, I really think we should invest in this thing called Netflix. We just bought a new house. I didn't have any money. I'm like, I don't have any money to put into Netflix. I'm 24 years old. I never lived that one down.
Ouch.
So the other night she goes, I'd like to invest in the Metaverse. Okay. Give me a little time to research and figure out how to do it, what to buy. She goes, well, what about this NFT? I go, you don't even know what an NFT is. So then I had to go into the discussion with my wife about what a non-fungible token was. Then she actually went and found an ETF because she was trying to understand the difference between a non-fungible token and an ETF. I said, well, the ETF is probably the route that you're going to go if we invest in the Metaverse because this is highly speculative. But when I saw this NFT that Applebee's released, it just made me think of my wife's story, but Applebee's just sold a burger, non-fungible token, to kind of capitalize on the crypto hype, and it sold for $25. But whoever bought it got a great deal because with the NFT came 1 year's worth of burgers from Applebee's.
I mean, so you spend $25 and you get a year's worth of... I wish I would have known about that because I could use a year's worth of cheeseburgers at any point.
Here's what it does. The restaurant chain said that this NFT signals the start of Metaverse Monday campaign that they're going to have. So when you start thinking about, my wife is talking about the Metaverse, Facebook has changed their name to Meta. All this is happening. We're pioneers. We talked about this like a year and a half ago. Earth 2.
Yeah.
When I tried to tell my wife about Earth 2 like a year and a half ago, she goes, what is this? I'm like, well, now she's understanding. She goes, well, maybe we need to go buy a restaurant in New York City in the Metaverse. I'm like, oh, here we go.
Now it starts.
But it's interesting because Applebee's is a publicly traded company. It's a giant chain, and they're embracing Metaverse Monday. And apparently, and I didn't know this, so shame on me, but White Castle, Taco Bell, and there's few other big name brands who've entered this digital space as well. So it's really crazy where things have come in a lot. I mean, no one knew what an NFT was 2 years ago, and now Applebee's has Metaverse Monday. And just to clarify, how much money is a year's worth of burgers? Because it's not like a burger every day.
I think it says $1,300 here.
$1,300. So I said, that's probably, what is that, like 2 burgers a week? And what's a burger? $10, $12, $25 a week. So they must be giving you like $25 or $30 a week for burgers. But whoever bought that, they made out well.
They did, and I don't. Maybe someday I'll be able to go to Applebee's and enjoy Metaverse Monday. I probably didn't know about this because I don't eat at Applebee's, White Castle, or Taco Bell for that matter. So I'm out of the loop.
One thing I heard this morning, I was listening to Jim Cramer on the way into work, and if you don't know Jim Cramer, he's the host of Mad Money on CNBC, and he's on the morning show on the CNBC radio station, and they were talking about Domino's. Their stock prices fell, and just this shift in general of people are not going out as much. Even though COVID is still here, people aren't as worried about it, but they believe there's just this philosophical shift of how people live that they may not go out as much. And I look at my wife and we used to have a babysitter every Friday night. Like we'd have a date night once a week. Well, we haven't had anybody for like 3 weeks. We'd go out to eat 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes more. Now, maybe we do carry out once a week. But if you start to think about the impact that it has on the overall service space, restaurants in general, there's got to be some pressure because we're not the only ones doing that. And their talk was this probably isn't just COVID related. It's people have changed their habits. People have realized that, I go out and spend $125 at dinner because if you have a family, you're not getting out of there for less than $100. Or right. I can have good quality time at home and save the $100. People have just changed their habits. And we've also saw that they had some data released here recently about personal savings rate. It's one of the highest percentages in the last 20 years. So I also kind of think that goes with how some of these chains are trying to capitalize on this metaverse. Like you may actually go out to dinner, just never leave your house.
So, yeah, I guess, but wouldn't if
don't ask me how it all works. Right. I don't know. But my wife was talking.
Probably going to go to the restaurant and people are going to be wearing that big virtual reality.
No, I don't think you're going to leave your house. My wife goes, you mean I can just go out with all my girlfriends and not never leave the house? I'm like, I guess, because I don't know how it all works yet. But in reality, that's probably what this is. Like, hey, my friend who lives in Des Moines and my one who lives in Florida, we could all get together in the virtual world and go have a cocktail together.
I'm gonna be the biggest bear on that. I do not like that. I don't like that idea. I don't like the idea of. We already have FaceTime, but I don't like that idea. I like people getting together and having real experiences together. Well, I'm old fashioned. I sound like I'm 60 years old.
Well, technically, I think they would be getting together and having a good time in the metaverse and having a real experience. So. Part of this is you have to wrap your head around how this thing will work. I don't know how
I'm going to make it my mission to never be seen in the metaverse.
What I told my wife when she first said this, I'm like, this is just like George Jetson stuff. Like, George Jetson was way ahead of his time, but we still don't have like flying cars. And how long was the Jetsons created? You don't even know what the Jetsons are, do you?
It was like an old cartoon when I was a kid. I'd be all for flying vehicles, though. That'd be great because then you can get where you want to go faster.
The Jetsons were made in 1962. So since 1962, they've basically been promoting this idea of flying cars, and we haven't got there. So I don't know how long it's going to take to get to the metaverse. We have real life experiences with our friends from our couch. But if it's the Jetsons, it could be 50 years.
Yeah, real experience where I got the big headset on and It's all good. Maybe.
So it's just kind of some.
I don't see me being a fan, but
it just kind of goes to some of the stuff we've talked about all year. There's a lot of new stuff in our world that people have never heard of, and they're trying to wrap their head around it. Meme stocks, digital currency, and now NFTs and the Metaverse and all these new things we've never heard of. Which, if you think about it, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, in the mid 90s, the internet was kind of a new thing. I mean, right? You go to AOL, we all had dial-up. It took 11 minutes. You weren't even around.
I don't remember when the internet was new. It's always been in my life, so I don't know what that was like.
What was the question you asked me on a show regarding how old I was? Like, when I got married, was the internet invented, is what you asked me.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if the internet was older than your marriage or your marriage was older than the internet. I wasn't sure.
We should actually have that in the year-end summary show, like the greatest moments, and that's probably of this year. That's got to be my greatest moment. I mean, we laughed here for like 15 minutes because it was kind of like you really didn't know, but it was this like massive insult about how old I was.
I had a feeling the internet was already around when you got married. That was my suspicion. Okay, so Metaverse, yeah. I don't know. Right now, I'm not a fan. I don't like the idea of people seeking their entertainment through the Metaverse. And then if we start going down this path where people don't want to be around other people, and then so like I like going to live music. So I would never be in favor of, hey, instead of going to the venue and going to watch the performers, you're going to sit on your couch and put virtual reality headset on and watch from there, and it's the same. Because to me, that would not be the same.
Have you ever done a virtual reality headset?
No, no.
So then you're actually not sure it wouldn't be the same. Because what if you could go buy a ticket?
If I'm not there, how do I go buy a beer and drink a beer and stand there and watch them?
You're going to walk yourself in the
talk
Metaverse.
To people.
Yeah, you just do right in the Metaverse. I think you're not open-minded about it.
I'm not.
But that's okay. Let's go back to something that's actually, instead of new, a really old thing. This has actually been around since, mid-90s. It was created by a guy named Bill Bengen, and it's really the 4% safe withdrawal rate. And it's been the standard, and we mentioned this on a previous show. I'd seen this article before, but it's been the standard in our industry basically from the time I've started, which was 2002. When somebody says, hey, how much is the safe withdrawal rate, or how much can I take out and have a high probability of never outliving my assets, we've just instantly responded 4%. And I believe this was created, in my opinion, because back in the mid-90s, financial plans, like someone sitting down and doing a financial plan, wasn't mainstream, partly due to technology. It was just a lot harder, a lot more cumbersome, where today we can knock it out in a couple of hours and dial in what someone needs to do. But this has been the gold standard for the better part of 30 years. Morningstar released a report that said the standard rule of thumb should now be lowered from 3.3% to 3.3% from 4%. And the reason is, and most people out there would realize this, back when they did this in the mid-90s, the average return on cash, just savings account cash, is like 5%. I mean, I remember in 2002, I opened my first Orange savings account, ING Orange savings account, 5.75% of my savings account. We've all forgot that. The days of that are long gone. I had a client the other day.
Yeah, if a bank opened that right now, people they'd be too busy. They wouldn't be handle the work. They wouldn't be able to handle the workload.
No, they wouldn't be able to take all the deposits.
Right.
So Bill Bengen, in his study, went back and he used a 30-year time horizon starting in 1926 to demonstrate why the 4% rule worked. And he used a portfolio of 50% stocks and 50% bonds. And he came to the conclusion that the 4% withdrawal, really, really worked well. We're here to tell you that your withdrawal strategy shouldn't be a percentage. It should be created through a financial plan that is specific to you. And more because of people don't spend money in a static fashion. What I mean by that is someone doesn't spend exactly the same amount of money each and every year in retirement. We talk about the 3 phases of retirement. You got the go-go phase. It's where you just retired. You're going to travel and see your kids and do all the stuff that you haven't been able to do for the last 30 or 40 years because you've been trying to get to this retirement place. And typically, in my opinion, it's one of the most expensive. And people underestimate how much money they're going to spend in this phase, in this go-go phase. Then you get to what I call the slow-go phase. And maybe that's at 75, but when you hit a certain age, and I'm not saying age is the barrier, just at some point you've done all the travel you want to do, you're done going to Europe, you just start to slow down, and truth be told, you may not have the energy to keep doing the same things that you've done. And this probably becomes the least expensive phase of retirement. And then the last is the no-go phase. And that's the phase where people can't do it. You just can't physically move. And this actually could become the most expensive part of your retirement. And that's when we start to talk about assisted living, in-home healthcare, nursing homes, all of those different things. So if you're doing a financial plan, we can dial in how much you need to spend. You may be able to spend 5% of your overall portfolio. It might be 5.5%. It depends on when you take the withdrawals and how long they're going to last. So in our financial plan, and you've seen this, we have a cash flow chart. It tells you exactly what percent of your portfolio you're spending each and every year, versus just saying, well, I'm going to spend 4% every year and call it good. That's just a very, very, very scary way to go about it. Not that it won't work. It's just more of a scary way to go about it.
Right. And this also, it's a rule of thumb. Right, and it was also made assuming a 50% stock, 50% bond portfolio, and not everyone is invested that way either. And, and that's, I get why, the whole premise of it, it makes sense. But I lean more towards the way we do it, and especially for people when they first retire, I like to see people spending their money and having fun, especially. It's like, because we have a lot of conversations with people. Sometimes people retire and they think it's great and they're doing all this stuff, and other people retire and then they say they're bored. But I know that the conversations are a lot more fun when someone's telling us about all the stuff they're doing and, do you think I'm spending too much? But then we can say, no, everything's going to be fine. You're spending more now, but your spending's not going to always be this way. So yeah, but that's what you get with, if you're going to follow rules of thumbs and stuff like that, this will probably work out for you. But, if you're going to have something more tailored, a specific plan for you, I guess that's where, like a firm like ours would come into play. And then what are some of the other factors that go into this?
If you're just going to go off the 4% rule, there's a couple things you have to think about. If you assumed 4%, so you retired 5 years ago and you said, well, the safe withdrawal rate's 4%. I haven't done a financial plan. I'm just going to live by this. And now it's 3.3. There are some ways that, potentially you need to make changes. Because let's say you're spending 4.5, it doesn't mean that you can't spend 4.5. It just means it's less dependable. There's a higher probability you'll run out. One of the ways people can actually have a higher withdrawal rate is they're going to have to take more risk on the equity and the fixed income side because you need a higher total return. So that's one way. You could have lower quality bonds. You could have more growth-oriented stocks. You're just going to have to potentially take more risk. The second way, if you're not going to have a financial plan done, and we do with every person that hits retirement or near every person. Some people aren't taking money, but if they're going to start spending down their portfolio, we put together a distribution strategy. And that's very, very important. We subscribe to the bucket approach. And really what that does is allocating money to different buckets of money. And what we're trying to do is reduce human error or emotion from it. If we segment your money by responsibilities, we typically think about 3 types: cash, income, and growth. So the cash bucket, 1 to 3 years of cash. And that might be a lot of cash to some people, but why do you do it? Because if the market goes down, on average, it takes 2 years to come back, let's say. If you got 1 to 3 years of cash, you won't have to sell a stock position to raise the funds for retirement.
Right, when it's down. You won't have to sell when it's negative or lost money.
I like to tell people this. If you have an apple tree and you have 15 branches making apples, if you have to sell an investment, that's like chopping off a branch of your apple tree. It's less income it can generate in the future. So if we had a big stash of apples from the previous years already on the ground to eat, we wouldn't have to chop the apple branch down to take all the apples from it, because that prevents future income.
That's a great analogy.
Well,
First time I've heard that one.
Sometimes it's apple trees, sometimes it's land, whatever. We mix it up.
Yeah, right.
But point is, we have cash. Then we should have income producing assets that are sending that income into our cash bucket to keep filling up the cash bucket as much as we really can. And then we should have our long-term or growth investments that are 6 to 10 years out. And then if the market has chaos, you can just ask someone you're working with, well, what bucket of money are we talking about? Because your cash bucket didn't go down in value. Your income bucket's probably paying a similar dividend or interest rate from the time we bought it. And then it's just the growth bucket. So do you really want to sell the stuff that's 6 years out today? Or are we okay holding this? Because we put together a very, very good distribution strategy for someone to have in retirement.
Most of the time the answer is probably we're just going to hold on to that and wait. We're not using it for 6 years anyway.
Well, that's in my opinion the best thing to do, is to have some kind of a bucket strategy in place so that you have a way to deal with, market changes. We've said this for a long time. We don't predict markets. We're not financial weathermen, but at some point we know the market's going to go down in value. We just don't know when. So as long as we have a plan to deal with it, we've taken care of the problem.
It'll be right, and I call it fluctuation, because the other day I had someone they're asking about their portfolio, and so they're a little bit worried about correction in the market. So I do have potential to lose some money, and this made him laugh, and I said, well, I don't really look at it like you're losing money. I look at it as a short-term fluctuation in the price. And he laughed about that.
Well, that's the truth. And what that bucket strategy we just talked about says is, if the market goes down, we're still okay.
Right.
If you think about why...
and when you decided to invest your money into the equity markets, you knew that they fluctuated, so it's okay. It's going to happen.
I had someone in the other day, and they're like, I said, my typical language the first time I meet somebody, what's most important? And they go, we don't want to lose any money over the next 3 years. Okay.
I have very limited options.
That's what I said. They're trying to talk themselves into more risk. And they're never going to spend this money. Legitimately, they're never going to spend it. They don't need it. They're never going to spend it. And I said, well, you're going to have to determine if the market goes down, are you going to have the wherewithal to not sell? Because otherwise, you guys just need to be in the safe, bank alternatives, like very, very, very safe investments.
How did they respond to that?
They're going to keep trying to talk themselves into taking more risk. And I'm not trying to talk them into it. I'm trying to talk them out of it. Because I've seen this. Because what will happen is they'll invest it. And inevitably, the first few months, the market will just go down. They'll get bad timing. And then they're going to call me up, say, hey, we just can't do this anymore. We got to sell. And I did them an injustice. Like when people try to talk themselves into more risk, it never ends up well. They're better off just not taking the risk, because if the market goes down, then they can tell themselves, yep, we made a really good decision by buying the bank CDs and not taking more risk.
Yeah. And that's that's one thing about our job. Like, we're supposed to educate people and help them within their best interest. Right. So I could look at a situation and I could always say, well, if I were you, I would do this. But that's really irrelevant, because that's not the type of advice I should be giving or we should be giving. It should be, well, what I know about you, this is what we should do, because it's in your best interest.
Here's what
I would do with your money, and maybe totally different than what you're comfortable with.
Here's what he asked me. He goes, would I have been better off over the last 13 years being in the stock market? And this is my answer. I said, well, I know I would have been, like if I had my money in the stock market, but I don't know about you. And he goes, why? I said, because 13 years ago, it would have been 2008. You'd invested your money in November of 2008, right when everything was starting to go bad.
Right. And would you have held
I said,
through
if you
that?
put your money in 13 years ago, would you have held through 2008, the 18% correction, the fourth quarter of 2018, and through COVID? Would you have not made any changes? And he goes, I don't know. So I said, yeah, I don't know if you'd have been better off. You might have been better off just parking your money in the bank like you've been doing because you didn't make any bad decisions. There's opportunity cost of not doing it, but I can't quantify. I don't know how you're going to react. And my thought is, I asked him, I said, well, if this account went down $15,000, what would happen? I wouldn't sleep at night. Probably just stay in the bank.
That could happen. And if you have enough money, $15,000, that can happen in a day.
This would have happened in like an hour with the account size this was.
Yeah, so right.
So, I mean, it was almost like, it literally every day, that would have been the fluctuation at a minimum every day. Up and down, up and down, up and down, 15 grand. And they just wouldn't be able to, I know they wouldn't be able to handle it. So I think that's funny how we kind of try to help people get out of their own way. So Elias, we're going to flip back to something new again in 2021, but there's a particular investment that started to catch mainstream favorability early in the year. And it's something called a SPAC. And that stands for Special Acquisition Company. And basically what they do is they help companies go public. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because a very popular name is now back in the news. Well, he's never left the news. But Donald Trump is trying to launch a social media venture through a special acquisition company.
Right, and he's funding it through a SPAC. Yeah, so we had that video come across. So, there's the SEC's investigating every aspect of it and everything they're doing. But, he almost has to create his own, isn't he kicked off every other social, like he's basically not allowed on social media. So his only option, if he's planning on campaigning again, he's going to have to create a space where he can actually get his message out there or whatever, because I don't think he's allowed on the other platforms.
And ironically enough, I pulled up this MSN article here, and the title is Trump's SPAC Proves You Now Can Create a Meme Stock on Purpose. Yeah. So you think about what happened. He just found the newest investment. It's a shady part of the investment world. Like, it's
misunderstood.
It's misunderstood. It's shady. And now Trump's involved with it. He created a SPAC. So the name of his media company is the Trump Media and Technology Group. And they engaged with a special acquisition company called DWAC. And when the merger was announced, and this is why they're saying you could potentially create a meme stock craze on purpose, the DWAC, which is the private equity company or SPAC, the shares went up 845% at the announcement of the merger.
Yeah, I remember that.
So it's similar to like a GameStop or an AMC meme stock situation, and it caused the SEC to start doing some investigation as to whether there was some dealings behind the scenes known before this was created. Because there's some rules around when the special acquisition company can actually go engage with the company they're going to list. Also, coincidentally enough, Devin Nunes was going to be taking over as a figurehead of the Trump Media Group, which he was a former politician. So they're actually going to investigate that too. But he's back in the news. He's trying to find a way to have, a voice out there, which he's, truth be told, he's kind of lost since he's been banned from Twitter. He's off Facebook. Whether that's good or bad, that's up for everybody to debate. That's not my job to debate. But he's found a way to make a meme stock on purpose about himself. Go figure.
I know. I wish I would have got in on that trade, which I didn't know anything about it until it was too late. By the time I heard of it, the stock price was already up like such an amount that it wouldn't even make sense.
Well, it goes back to they're just
buy it, but people are going to pile. If he, like him doing something like that, people are going to pile in. Just look at the number of followers he has.
Regardless of your political affiliation, there's a lot of people that follow him and like him. He has a very large audience. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. It's just a fact. Whether that's right or wrong, it is what it is. But it just goes to show when somebody has that much power. I'd guess if Elon Musk did the same thing, the exact same thing would happen. If Elon Musk went and said, I'm going to create a media company and we're going to go take it public through this SPAC, guess what would happen? It might be bigger, actually, because of his success.
Similar result.
Because of his success in the previous businesses that he's had. But
so
it's
when is the next election is going to be in 24?
Yeah, the midterms in 2022 and the next election in 2024.
Okay, so we have like 2022 of hopefully not so much in-your-face politics, but then 2023, it's probably on campaigning and the whole thing.
I believe that this media company is what it's all about. Because he's got to find a way to be in your face again. Because if he's not on the other social media channels, how does he get it? It's only going to be through airtime. Well, mainstream media doesn't throw him out there. I mean, most media channels aren't putting that out there on a daily basis. So they're going to do everything they can to silence what he has to say. But yeah, I believe in 2023, it's going to be right back in our face eventually.
Man, this really I want to create a meme stock now.
You put your effort to figure it out, I'm in. I'll be your first investor, Elias.
Okay.
Well, this is kind of a fun show, Elias. I think we had a little bit of the new, well, most of the new, and a little bit of the old. Well, I think the takeaway from the show, Elias, and just be prepared for a lot of things changing in the future. Things always change, but I feel like the change in the investment world is rapid. Just all the new technology, the new types of investments that are rolling out there. And we're here to educate people and give them the stuff that they need to know. And the primary thing people should know is that a financial plan can actually answer a lot of the questions that you have and make a lot of the stuff that you hear in the news irrelevant, because a lot of it is literally just for entertainment purposes. So with that said, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Elias, do you have anything you want to end the show with?
Just Merry Christmas, everybody. And, if you want some help with your portfolio or some help with financial planning, don't be shy. Reach out to us. We're always here. So Merry Christmas, everyone.